The new book Elf. I am not a poison trainer, please support me a lot. Where should an ordinary person who has never been exposed to games travel to the world of elves without a prominent background, golden fingers, or mysterious grandfather? Book Friend QQ Group 5996532778 Fan QQ Group 635234541 Newcomers and new books, please support us. Keywords of the novel. Black Giant of Pet Elves with no pop-ups, complete collection download of Black Giant of Pet Elves TXT, latest chapter reading of Black Giant of Pet Elves. Chapter 1. Shinji Ryozaki. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Shinji Ryozaki in Guangdong mainland, in an abandoned construction site in the suburb of Light Red City, at night, typhoon rainstorm weather. The raindrops of Lily Lily continuously drip down from the thick black clouds covering the sky. After several hours of continuous rainfall, a layer of rainwater has accumulated on the poorly drained construction site. The strong wind lingers and echoes in the construction site, and some rusty exposed steel on the cement constantly sings cold music in the wind. The dense sound of stepping on the water quickly echoed in the construction site, and a group of people wearing black raincoats appeared at the construction site. The location of the signal is here, be careful, everyone. That thing is not something that rookies like you can deal with. Work in pairs, search separately, and once you find a target, immediately send a signal flare to report. The man in charge said coldly, even a large raincoat cannot cover up his tall body. After he gave the order, the people behind him immediately separated in pairs, exuding a military iron-blooded temperament from these people. With a loud roar, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the pale mask beneath the man's rain hat, which was adorned with a large R symbol. On the construction site covered by waterlogging, 2 rocket team soldiers were holding flashlights and cautiously detecting everything around them. They were moving slowly against the waterlogging. It's really unlucky, but it's our turn to be on duty at this time. In this kind of ghostly weather, we still have to take risks. It's frustrating to think about it, isn't it, really, second brother? One of the rocket team soldiers complained to his companions in a strong local dialect. Alright, Tui. Anyway, we're just here to do odd jobs. Be careful and there won't be any danger. Also, you should keep your voice down. There are many wild little elves on this construction site, and they are very unfriendly to us. The tall young man on the other side said coldly with a cold face, then looked coldly at the few pairs of blood-red eyes that suddenly appeared around him. Cut, there are some guys who don't have long eyes. Just get rid of them, come out, big-mouthed bat. The young man named Tui also noticed the hostility of the wild elves around him, but his caution was different from that of the tall young man. He grinned cruelly and then emitted his own little elf. Big-mouthed bat, a white light appeared, and the big-mouthed bat, which had been covered in scars all along, docked on the young man's shoulder. Then, with the same cruel gaze, it stared at the wild elves around it, revealing deep malice and desire in its eyes. Enough, don't provoke them anymore, otherwise I will be impolite to you. I don't want to fight in a typhoon without any reason. If I startle the target, the captain's punishment will not be joking. The tall young man immediately turned his head and stared coldly at the young man when he saw that he wanted to take action. A cold and murderous aura emanated from him, and then a towering snake head emerged from the chest of the tall young man, staring emotionlessly at the big-mouthed bat on his shoulder with erect pupils. After a few seconds of staring at each other, the young man lowered his head and dared not look directly at each other. When he remembered the scene where this person had once killed a Lada with his bare hands, the slightest hint of confrontation in his heart disappeared. Humph, let's go. Don't let the same thing happen again, otherwise, you know. The tall young man saw the young man surrender, so he withdrew his killing intent from his body. The snake head on his chest slowly retracted into his large raincoat. Then the tall young man turned around and continued to walk forward with a flashlight. As for the hidden killing intent in the young man's eyes behind him, he didn't care at all. A tall young man named Shinji Ryozaki, born in Rainbow City, Kanto, is a helpless orphan. In fact, Shinji Ryozaki's original name was Wu Ming, a hard-working office worker on Earth who died in a bus accident. However, he never expected to travel to the world of pet elves. As an ordinary person who has never been exposed to games, Wu Ming almost went crazy when he first arrived in this world. Seeing those elves who can easily kill, Wu Ming was afraid from the bottom of his heart. He was adopted by an orphanage and named Ryozaki Shinji by the old dean. Since then, Wu Ming has disappeared, leaving only Ryozaki Shinji. At the beginning, he was able to accept the life in the orphanage and gradually understood the situation in this world. It was a world where people coexisted and fought against small elves. In order to fight against large groups of small elves in the wild, humans developed a profession called trainers and became the savior of protecting humanity. As an orphan with an adult soul, Shinji Ryozaki is very sensible and aspires to become a trainer to change his own destiny. Unfortunately, reality is cruel. Elf knowledge, a high-level thing, is not something that an orphan who is not as good as a commoner can access. Lonely and helpless, Shinji Ryozaki can only endure 10 years in an orphanage. Then, on the day he was 10 years old, he was sold to the Rockets by the old dean with a human face and animal heart. The Rockets have a very cruel test for newcomers, even if you are a child. He still remembers his first trial, which involved killing each other. Out of 1,000 children, only half of them survived, and in the end, he personally killed an unarmed little girl to survive. He will never forget the feeling of that young life being killed and the expression on her face before death. Since then, he has never been able to turn back. He has gone further and further on the dark road, stealing other elves, participating in assassination operations, and creating panic incidents. He has experienced all kinds of illegal activities, and now he, Shinji Ryozaki, is a villain with blood-stained hands. For young and energetic newcomers like Takuya Fujiwara, Shinji Ryozaki would never trust him. They would only cause trouble everywhere and implicate him. If it weren't for this operation, which was led by Caesar, known as the Blood General, to capture dreams, he would definitely personally take down this hidden time bomb next to him. With a bang, a withered fireworks appeared in the pitch-black night sky. If there is a situation, go over immediately. After seeing the fireworks in the air, Shinji Ryozaki dropped a sentence to Takato Fujiwara beside him and immediately ran towards the direction of the signal flare. When Shinji Ryozaki arrived at the location of the signal flare, the fierce battle had already begun. I saw 3 electric shock beasts and 3 young Jyla surrounding a petite elf, then relentlessly attacking, but neither the intense current nor the eerie shadow ball could break the energy shield of the elf, which was emitting dreamy light all over. Fantasy looked at the group of humans who had been attacking her several times. Even though she was naturally kind and didn't like fighting, she became a little angry. She shouted around and then emitted a strong superpower. The 6 little elves surrounding her were immediately knocked away by her superpowers. No problem, she's calling out to the wild elves around her. Hurry up, you guys, stop her and don't let her run. Electric shock beast, young Jyla, stand up and continue charging. Caesar immediately knew something was wrong when he saw Dreamy using his superpowers and howling. Based on the collected data, he immediately understood Dreamy's intentions and gave orders to his subordinates around him. If you want to run, there's no way. ABA Snake glared at him with a big snake. Ryozaki Shinji saw Menghuan flying towards him and immediately gave instructions to ABA Snake, who was wrapped around him. I saw a thick purple snake nearly 3 meters in length pounce from his chest, its eyes emitting red light glaring at the cute little beast in front of him. However, Fantasy seemed to have a plan in place. A white shield protected her, which was the mysterious guardian. Then, her pink eyes flashed, and a powerful superpower knocked Shinji Ryozaki and Abe Snake away. Puff, a mouthful of hot blood spurted out, and Shinji Ryozaki fiercely collided with a wall, which had already been severely eroded and immediately collapsed. Damn it, the difference is too big. Shinji Ryozaki struggled to get up from the ground, and just now he hit and broke both of his ribs. His back should be bruised now, but he didn't have time to care about these things because a group of less attractive guys had already surrounded him. Humph, a bunch of trash is trying to kill me, Abe Snake, come over here. Ryozaki Shinji coldly looked at the wild elves surrounding him and shouted loudly. Then, a purple snake head protruded from the ground next to him, and the cold snake eyes met Ryozaki Shinji before turning to look coldly at the wild elves around him. Unfinished to be continued, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Gas Bomb. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Gas Bomb. The thunder roared incessantly, and thunder snakes appeared one after another as they swept across the sky. The rain grew even heavier. In a corner of the abandoned construction site, a disheveled tall young man faced a group of big rats surrounding him with a stern and imposing demeanor. Abe Snake, use the coil and then use the dissolution solution on them, Ryozaki Shinji sneered as he looked around at the timid Lotta and little Lotta, knowing that Abe Snake's intimidating properties had taken effect. Since he didn't choose to surge in all of them, don't blame him for taking the initiative first. Immediately let Abe Snake improve his abilities first. Abe Snake immediately executed the command, quickly coiling his body, and a burst of improved abilities suddenly appeared from him. After the improvement of his abilities, the intimidation on Abe Snake became even stronger, and some timid little Lottas had already begun to retreat. If it weren't for the Lotta at the forefront still persevering, they would have run away in the face of their natural enemy Abe Snake. But they soon regretted not running away. Black liquid spewed out from the mouth of the purple snake, hitting them like shells, and all the little Lotta that had been shelled by the liquid turned into thick water. Lotta, a big mouse, twice the size of an ordinary Lotta, saw its offspring being killed by the Abe Snake. Its eyes flashed with a cold light, and white light appeared on its body. With a flash of electric light, it thought the Abe Snake would rush over. The other 3 Lotta and 5 little Lotta followed suit and used a flash of electric light to rush towards the Abe Snake. Several of them rushed towards Longqi Zhener, and as they moved, their big teeth in their mouths all lit up. I learned to be smart, but unfortunately, it's already too late. Abe Snake and Big Snake stared at me and killed them all. Shinji Ryozaki laughed cruelly. After coiling, Abe Snake's attack and defense abilities improved, and more importantly, his hit rate also increased. Abe Snake aimed at all the little elves attacking him with a big snake stare, which was very effective in a group of battles. All Rada and little Rada, who were staring at him with cold snake eyes, trembled and stopped in place. Then, the Abe Snake quickly took a bite of all the fearful fools and injected venom. All the Lotta and little Lotta who were bitten by the Abe Snake immediately showed purple spots on their faces, then convulsed all over, and finally lost their vitality. Only 1 Lotta and 2 little Lottas did not catch the big snake of the Abe Snake's glare, as they both went to attack Shinji Ryozaki and saw the death of their companions. These survivors were very resentful of Shinji Ryozaki and the Abe Snake, and their eyes had turned red. After completing Ryozaki Shinji's instructions, Abe Snake did not go back to help him. Instead, he contentedly swallowed little Lotta, who had just been poisoned, and then turned his snake head to playfully look at his owner. Che, it seems like he needs to go back and give me a good education again. He dares to rush towards me, without knowing whether he's alive or dead. Come out, use gas bombs, and spin at high speed. Seeing Abe Snake fall off the chain again at a critical moment, Ryozaki Shinji's eyes were filled with coldness, but he didn't panic on his face. He immediately took out a Poké ball from his waist and opened it. With a flash of white light, a gas bomb appeared beside him, emitting purple smoke all over. Unlike the typical gas bomb with a dull expression, this gas bomb had bright and lively eyes. Its small eyes narrowed, and a strange smile kept appearing on its face, giving the impression of a cunning little person. As soon as it came out, it smiled and began to spin at high speed, knocking away all the little elves rushing towards Longqi. "Well done, kill them all with a mud bomb," said Shinji Ryozaki coldly with a slight bend in his mouth. Upon hearing this, the gas bomb chuckled again, and then several hot mud balls emitting purple smoke spewed out from his mouth. The hot mud balls immediately exploded when they came into contact with the little elf. The sound of bang bang rang out, leaving several small pits on the ground and some blackened limbs and broken legs. "Well done, gas bomb," Shinji Ryozaki gently said, touching the gas bomb floating beside him. "Gas gas." Gas Dan was very satisfied with the owner's praise, with a happy expression on his face. However, he quickly returned to his previous deceitful appearance. He turned his head to look coldly at the nearby Appa snake, and then smiled again. "Come here, Abe Snake," Ryozaki Shinji said coldly, his face very cold. For Shinji Ryozaki's command, Abe Snake did not immediately follow him this time, but stared at him with cold snake eyes. After exchanging glances for a while, Abe Snake finally lowered its head and quickly crawled towards Ryozaki Shinji. However, just as he was about to approach Ryozaki Shinji, the gas bomb next to Ryozaki Shinji immediately launched an attack, and two hot mud balls flew accurately towards the Appa snake. After the two explosions of bouncing, Abe Snake was already lying on the ground, completely burnt black. His body was blown in half, and his cold snake pupils now showed strong fear. "The next time I dare to do this again, I'll kill you, remember." Shinji Ryozaki stepped on the head of the Abe Snake and looked at him coldly. Upon hearing this, the Abe Snake immediately lowered its head and moved, expressing submission. "Humph, come back." Ryozaki Shinji expressionlessly took out the Poké ball and retrieved the half-dead Abe Snake. He was not worried about Abe Snake's injuries. This guy had a very strong regenerative ability, and as long as he had a breath and enough energy, he could quickly recover his body. Now it was treated as a punishment for disobedience. 1 hour later, Caesar began to gather manpower. This time, there were fewer people coming back, and it was normal for casualties to occur in order to intercept the dream. However, this time the dream seemed angry, so more people died than before. His previous partner, Takashi Fujiwara, also died. However, this was not surprising for Shinji Ryozaki, as this foolish young man would eventually die. "Your performance this time was very brave. Although the mission capture failed, we received a few dreamy hairs, which is considered a rich harvest. Therefore, I will report to headquarters and give you each a reward of 1,000 points." Caesar excitedly said, holding a glass bottle inside, which contained these pink hairs, obviously what he called dreamy hairs. Seeing the excited members of the rocket team below, Caesar smiled contentedly. Then, he spoke again, this time to mourn his deceased companions and make a declaration of rocket team glory. 1,000 points, that's not bad, it's just giving us survivors the rewards for tasks that dead people don't use. Cut, it's this kind of old-fashioned brainwashing. Ryozaki Shinji looked coldly at his enthusiastic companions around him in the crowd and thought disdainfully. These people have already been brainwashed successfully by the rockets, and this brainwashing behavior has never stopped since joining the rockets. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for Ryozaki Shinji, a person with a long-established worldview. After mourning, Caesar happily left the abandoned construction site with the remaining members of the rocket team and walked towards the nearby base in Light Red City. Shallow Red City Rocket Team Underground Base, Medical Area. "You've hurt yourself all over again this time, really, you always come to trouble me," said a young woman dressed in a white nurse to Shinji Ryozaki, who had a cold face in front of her. "Long-winded, I will still undergo a full-body treatment, and the points will be deducted from my deposit account. Also, Abe Snake, please ask you," Shinji Ryozaki said calmly with his eyes closed. "Got it, don't come back next time, the young woman said angrily when she saw that Shinji Ryozaki didn't want to talk to him. Finally, she manipulated the machine and threw Shinji Ryozaki into a huge glass filled with therapeutic liquid. Shinji Ryozaki also quickly put on a diving mask with a rubber tube connected, and then injected hypnotic gas into the water. He quickly fell asleep. Why are you fighting so hard? This time, your internal organs have slightly shattered, almost forming internal bleeding. Next time, can you still be so lucky? Aoki Hanako looked at Shinji Ryozaki, who was sleeping naked in the treatment bottle, worried. Unfinished to be continued, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Surrender of the Appa Snake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The Surrender of the Appa Snake. The next noon, Shinji slowly opened his eyes from the treatment bottle. The originally emerald green liquid had now turned into a pool of water. He pressed a red button at the bottom of the treatment bottle with his foot. 1 minute later, the female nurse who took care of him yesterday arrived. Shinji, naked and expressionless, took a brand new Rocket Squad uniform from the red-faced female nurse and quickly put it on. This is your Poké Ball, they have all returned to their best form, and I have already fed them for you. The female nurse blushed and took out 2 Rocket Team specially made black Poké Balls from her pocket, handing them to Shinji, then lowered her head and dared not look at him anymore. It's so big, even bigger than before, the female nurse blushed and lowered her head, thinking that she was about to faint. When she adjusted her mood and lifted her head, Shinji Ryozaki had already taken the things he had stored and left. Shinji Ryozaki first returned to his room. A simple single bed, a table and chair, an old-fashioned computer, and 2 barbells are all the things in Ryozaki Shinji's room. The first time he returned to the room was to exercise his muscles and bones. After a full-body exercise, he finally smiled with satisfaction. His injury from yesterday had completely healed. No matter how many times I try, I feel incredibly amazing. This is tens of thousands of times better than medical technology in the past. As long as I have a good sleep, nothing will happen, murmured Shinji Ryozaki. Due to the powerful healing ability of elves and the corresponding medical technology developed, the number of people dying from illness in the elf world is extremely low, and the number of people directly dying at the hands of wild elves remains high every year. After checking his own body, he began to check the status of the little elf. After pressing the buttons of the 2 elf balls, 2 white lights appeared. After the white light dispersed, gas bullets and Appa snakes appeared in front of him. Gas, the cunning and vicious gas bomb immediately flew to Ryozaki Shinji's side, nodding and bowing to please him, with a pair of small eyes showing deep longing. Abe's snake immediately lowered its head, coiled its body and dared not move. Its cold snake pupils showed fear. Although its lower body had grown back, its newly grown lower body was much smaller than its upper body, and it would take at least several days to recover. This time, Ryozaki Shinji's punishment completely intimidated him, and the fear of death made him temporarily submit to Ryozaki Shinji. You're such a glutton, take it. Looking at the gas bomb in front of him, Shinji Ryozaki smiled slightly. He took out a pair of gloves from his waist pocket and put them on, then took out a pearl-emitting purple light from it. As soon as Gas Bullet saw the bead, his saliva immediately flowed, like a pug shaking his head and tail at Shinji Ryozaki. He could only shake his head, and Abe's snake immediately lifted its head, revealing deep greed in its pupils. This is a precious and extremely poisonous pearl, which contains amazing poisonous energy. It is definitely the ultimate temptation for poisonous elves, and the gas bullet is pleasing him so much to absorb the energy of the poisonous pearl. Of course, Shinji Ryozaki is also willing to make his loyal gas bullet stronger. Shinji Ryozaki put the highly poisonous gem into the gas bomb's already opened mouth, and gently touched the gas bomb's head. This highly toxic gem was snatched from the hands of the Alliance during a mission operation by Shinji Ryozaki 1 year ago. For it, Shinji Ryozaki was in danger of dying. The enemy was stronger than him, and in the end, Shinji Ryozaki used a desperate method to kill them. Not only did the gas bomb explode and almost die, but Abe Snake also had a snake head left. He was also burned all over and lost his right eye forever. His current right eye is just an artificial eye, which he has been covering with bangs. Of course, the rewards were also very generous. After that battle, Shinji Ryozaki finally had the capital to become stronger. The highly toxic treasure bead greatly increased the gas elasticity, not only improving his intelligence, but also enhancing his moves. For example, yesterday's sludge bomb was just a ball of sludge and would not explode. The mutation of the gas bomb overjoyed Shinji Ryozaki, and at the same time, his ambition began to grow wildly. He was no longer satisfied with his identity as a Rocket Team miscellaneous soldier, and he wanted to become a Rocket Team cadre or even an old boss. However, the 9 years of life and death in the Rockets have ultimately honed Shinji Ryozaki's cautious personality. Even though he now possesses the strength of a Rockets elite, he still hasn't shown it because he still needs to accumulate strength. Having only an elite gas bomb cannot stand firm in the elite class of the Rockets. All of this is because he is just a miscellaneous soldier with no background. The Rockets are a dark organization with a wide range of factions, and their people hold 99% of the important positions in the Rockets. Only with absolute strength can they be valued and have the opportunity for promotion. He once pulled down his face and flattered Caesar, who was a member of the Apollo faction, like a dog. However, the other party only gave him a contemptuous glance and humiliated him severely. From then on, he gave up the idea of joining any faction and decided to climb up with absolute strength. In the end, strength was still paramount in the dark world. 10 minutes later, the gas bomb finally withstood the power of the non-toxic gem and spat it out. He was now red all over, like a bomb about to explode. A strand of purple liquid dripped from a small hole in his body, directly corroding a small hole in the marble floor. However, the gas bomb eventually managed to hold on and his body color slowly returned to purple. However, the white skull mark on his body's surface once again added a touch of black, and now only the head of the white skull has not completely turned black. Shinji Ryozaki estimates that when all the white skulls turn black, it is the moment of gas bomb evolution. Next time, don't be greedy. If you can't hold on, you'll spit it out. Remember, Shinji Ryozaki picked up the highly toxic gem from the ground and pretended to be angry, knocking on the head of the gas bomb. The poisonous energy contained in the highly toxic gem is too strong, and the poisonous elves can only endure it for a period of time. Otherwise, even the poisonous elves will be poisoned to death. The gas bomb could only last for about a minute a year ago. Gas bullet nodded weakly as he was almost exhausted from absorbing poisonous energy. This time, he was greedy and almost exploded to death. Alright, go back to the Pokemon Ball and absorb the remaining poison energy. Shinji Ryozaki picked up the Pokemon Ball and collected the gas bomb. Abe Snake, come here. After retracting the gas bomb, Shinji Ryozaki looked coldly at the purple snake ahead with a greedy expression. It is difficult to raise cold-blooded little elves like Abe Snakes. At first, you cannot tolerate them. Only by frightening them can they obey you. Shinji Ryozaki's Abe Snake was a little elf who had already killed 5 former masters. He ate all of his former masters. After hearing about this, Shinji Ryozaki specially exchanged a small amount of points for the killer's snake and eventually used violent means to temporarily subdue him. Unfortunately, he has always been tricked at critical moments, and yesterday was already the 9th time. After seeing the eyes of Shinji Nagasaki, the greed in the snake's pupils disappeared without a trace, leaving only fear. In the end, he reluctantly crawled over under Shinji Nagasaki's cold eyes and then lowered his head in front of him. Abe Snake, you are an immature white-eyed wolf. I have given you 9 full chances, so I don't think you need to live anymore. As soon as the words were finished, Shinji Ryozaki stepped on Abe Snake 7 inches and held onto his head with both hands. Abe Snake wanted to struggle, but was stepped on 7 inches and couldn't exert any force. Feeling the increasing grip on his neck, the yellow snake pupils reflected on the ferocious face of the human in front of him. He knew that the human was really trying to kill him, and the snake pupils began to loosen, and his consciousness was about to lose. Shinji Ryozaki fiercely threw the dying Abe's snake onto the wall, then walked up to him and stepped on his snake head. "From today on, you will be my little elf, and my orders cannot be refused. Do you remember?" Shinji Ryozaki stepped hard on the snake's head and said. Abe's snake reluctantly opened his eyes and looked at Shinji Ryozaki. Finally, he placed his 7 inches next to Shinji Ryozaki's other foot as a gesture of submission. Unfinished to be continued, end of this chapter. Chapter 4. Death Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 5. Task Team Members. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Task Team Members. The next day, at noon, Shinji Ryozaki arrived as scheduled, and 5 people had already arrived at the waiting location, 1 Elite Rocket Team member and 4 Rocket Team minions. The Rocket Team Elite is a mature and sexy purple-haired woman, although not very beautiful, her figure is very great, protruding and curling up, like a ripe peach. 3 male Rocket Team soldiers around her have been courting her. For the behavior of the 3 Rocket Team soldiers, the purple-haired woman showed a shallow smile, and her beautiful purple eyes occasionally showed teasing glances, making the 3 male Rocket Team soldiers shake their heads and tails in front of her like a male dog in heat. The last Rocket Squad soldier was a blue-haired beauty, to be precise, an iceberg beauty. Even if Shinji Ryozaki stood from a distance, she could feel her cold and indifferent aura of resisting people from afar. "Little brother, are you also on this mission? If so, I'll miss you." The female Rocket Team Elite saw Ryozaki Shinji walking this way and immediately took a cat step, his buttocks twisted and twisted, showing a charming and intellectual smile and asking Ryozaki Shinji. Looking at the enchanting white snowflakes in front of him, Shinji Ryozaki's face remained expressionless, with a consistent coldness in his eyes. He only coldly glanced at the female Rocket's Elite, then nodded expressionlessly, and then stepped over from her side. Ryozaki Shinji does not believe in any strangers, especially a woman who knows how to use her body to gain an advantage. Such a woman, Ryozaki Shinji, keeps a distance from her and does not want to have any relationship with her. This kind of woman only wants to use men purely, and should be thrown away when used up. He has seen this before in his past life. Faced with Makoto Ryozaki's indifferent behavior, the elite female Rocket Team couldn't change her smile, but upon closer inspection, she could see her right hand tightly gripping her, and the teasing gaze in her eyes disappeared. She turned her head to look at Makoto Ryozaki's burly figure, her cherry lips slightly curved upwards, her eyes showing excitement like finding prey, with a hint of killing intent deep inside. The 3 Rocket Team soldiers saw that Shinji Ryozaki was now treating the goddess they met today, and their eyes turned cold towards Shinji Ryozaki. The 3 of them only gave him a cold glance, without saying a word. One of them, with a bald, scarred face even taller than Shinji Ryozaki, looked at him with a murderous expression. The only thing that had a slight liking for Shinji Ryozaki was the iceberg beauty, but it was just a hint. She said her name to Shinji Ryozaki and then continued to close her eyes and keep a distance from the people around her. Sato Nami, this is the name of the iceberg beauty. Although she is very cold, her voice is exceptionally pleasant, even better than the voice of a yellow warbler. It's a pity that this woman doesn't want to become a singer. Shinji Ryozaki hesitated slightly when he heard the voice of the iceberg beauty, then nodded at him and couldn't help but think. Alright, now that everyone is here, let me start with the tasks. Of course, first let's introduce ourselves. Because there are new people, I will introduce myself again. I am Sakura Miyamoto, the initiator of the task, said a mature woman named Sakura Miyamoto as she walked up to Shinji Ryozaki with a cat step, looking at him with fiery eyes, and then supported her chin with her small hand. Shinji Ryozaki. Sato Nanami. Shinji Ryozaki and Nanami Sato said coldly at the same time. My grandfather's name is Saikiro Okada, you kid, remember. The big man who had just looked at Shinji Ryozaki with fierce eyes tilted his head and pointed at him arrogantly, then immediately put on a pig-like face and looked at Sakura Miyamoto with a pleasing expression. Regarding this, Sakura Miyamoto just smiled slightly and continued to look at Shinji Ryozaki with fiery eyes, as if she was not interested in the big man. This made the big man very unhappy, and she turned her head to look at Shinji Ryozaki with a displeased expression, as if she wanted to kill him on the spot. A fool, there's no threat. Find a chance to kill her. Since that woman is the initiator of the mission, let's temporarily save her life. Ryozaki Shinji saw Miyamoto Sakura using a big man to deal with him, his face remained expressionless, and he even closed his eyes. However, those familiar with Ryozaki Shinji knew that it was his behavior towards the dead, because they didn't need to take another look. The remaining 2 male rocket team soldiers also introduced their names one after another, the small young man named Murakami Mitsuro and the short and chubby young man named Kojima Taro. After everyone introduced themselves, Sakura Miyamoto began to narrate the mission. Although it was not very detailed, it basically made everyone understand that the real person who released the mission was actually a cadre, who was Sakura Miyamoto's superior. Miyamoto Sakura only followed his orders and had her issue the task. Among them, capturing the stinky mud was just the minimum requirement of the task. If they wanted to obtain a richer reward, they had to retrieve something lost by the cadre from the stinky mud's territory. Miyamoto Sakura didn't say what valuable thing it was, just briefly mentioned it. How about it? As long as you can help adults retrieve lost items, you can get double the reward, and you can also gain the appreciation of adults. Maybe you can also have the opportunity to be promoted to an elite. Sakura Miyamoto leaned forward slightly, revealing a charming smile and said to everyone. Ha ha ha, it's my duty as Okada Saikiro to do things for the cadres. Let me take care of it, and I will definitely retrieve the things of the cadres. Seeing the charming Snow White in front of him, the big man swallowed a mouthful of water and then said with his eyes lit up. The opportunity to gain the appreciation of the cadres excited him immensely. Murakami Mitsuro and Kojima Taro, 2 young men, also showed greedy eyes. The treatment of the soldiers and elites was vastly different. Not only was their monthly salary 10 times higher than that of the soldiers, but they also did not have to carry out heavy daily tasks. More importantly, they no longer had to perform mandatory tasks. The reward for this task made the 2 of them, who had just completed their first mandatory task, very tempted. Even Iceberg Beauty Sato Nanami opened her beautiful blue big eyes, with a hint of warmth in them. Ryozaki Shinji's face also showed an expression of interest, but he pretended. If you observe carefully, you will find that Ryozaki Shinji's eyes are still as plain as water. Sakurako Miyamoto has yet to provide information about the location and stinky mud territory of this mission, and has only used mission rewards to hang them up, which has made Shinji Ryozaki sneer in his heart. To put it simply, this mission is to use them as cannon fodder to explore the way. Perhaps there is still a yellow sparrow following behind them, but he deliberately did not ask. He is indeed very interested in this mission, and a cadre is fond of something that cannot be forgotten, which is quite attractive to him. Seeing everyone showing interested expressions, Sakura Miyamoto smiled contentedly, then turned her head to a man in the corner without leaving a trace and blinked her eyes. Then she smiled and looked at Shinji Ryozaki and others, but this time there was a teasing look deep in her eyes. 2 hours later, inside the intricate underground waterway of Light Red City, 6 people wearing black uniforms were walking in the sewer with flashlights in hand. They were none other than Ryozaki Shinji and his entourage. However, they have now taken off their rocket team uniforms and unified into a tight black uniform. The location of their execution is the underground sewer of the abandoned urban area of Light Red City, where a large number of wild elves live. Among them, Stinky Mud and Bowing Bat are the 2 most powerful elven populations in the sewer. Along the way, they have encountered many attacks from these types of elves, and as they get closer to the mission destination, which is the central area of the sewer, there are more and more traces of elf activity, and the level of encountered elves is also getting stronger. Appa Snake, the big snake glares. Miss Millip, the freezing light. Shinji Ryozaki and Nami Sato quickly gave orders to their elf. After several battles, Shinji Ryozaki had temporarily reached a consensus with this iceberg beauty through eye contact. Their moves complemented each other and they could easily defeat the incoming elf. I saw a purple snake wrapped around Shinji Ryozaki's body, with its eyes wide open. Several stinky mud immediately stood in place, trembling incessantly. Then, a humanoid female elf immediately gathered ice energy in her hands, and a cold beam of light was released from her hand, directly freezing the few stinky mud. Then, a quick fist man came out to snatch the person's head and used his flame fist to knock down all the stinky mud. Ha ha ha, your cooperation is really useful. Let's leave the final matter to my Qiuchuan Lang. Okada Chinichiro laughed as he watched his Qiuchuan Lang successfully snatch the head. He had already done this many times along the way, but neither Shinji Ryozaki nor Nanami Sato stopped him, which made him think they were cowardly, so he became even more reckless. However, the two young men beside the big man turned pale. The little elves beside them were the big-mouthed bat and the fur ball, and their two little elves were now trembling in front of the cold gaze of the aber snake. Seeing the expression on their elf's face, both young men could think with their toes that Shinji Ryozaki was definitely not something they could provoke. The big man pulled on the two of them, which made them very dissatisfied, but it seemed that he didn't notice and continued to wrap his thick arms around their necks, looking like an iron brother. You guys are really amazing. You're just a little close to your destination, you'll be there soon. Sakura Miyamoto smiled at the people who had already split into two factions, and then said brightly. Her little elf was actually a stinky mud, and this stinky Ni was the one who guided them all the way. It seems like it's really coming soon. Shinji Ryozaki ignored Sakura Miyamoto's words and turned his head to look coldly at the countless pairs of crimson eyes that suddenly appeared in the darkness ahead. Unfinished to be continued for the sake of the plot, we have changed the name from Hot Monkey to Quick Fist Lang. We apologize for any inconvenience caused. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Between Applause. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Between Applause. In the darkness ahead, there were more and more crimson eyes, and before these bloodthirsty hunters could reach them, a piercing sound wave came. Oh my god, who angered these terrifying guys? They are a group of super sound bats. Let's run quickly, otherwise they will all turn into zombies. As a trainer of the big-mouthed bat, Ichiro Murakami was too aware of the habits of these greedy guys. As soon as he saw a group of ultrasonic bats, his face turned pale instantly. He forcefully broke free from Okada Saikiro's arm, then turned around and returned with the big-mouthed bat on the same path. Other people who saw the group of ultrasonic bats looked equally pale, but they didn't move. It's impossible to escape the pursuit of ultrasonic bats in such a dark place. These guys who use sound wave positioning can easily find you as long as they are willing. Can you, an ordinary person, still run past ultrasonic bats flying in the sky? Kojima Taro actually wanted to run, but when he thought about his physique, he gave up. He was so fat that his two short legs couldn't run anyone else. If everyone had to run together, he would be the first to die, and he also noticed that Shinji Ryozaki and the others did not have panic or despair on their faces, so he eventually forced himself to stay. However, he also broke free from the big man's arm and came to Longqi Jinner and his wife with a furry ball, showing a pleasing expression on his face. Those who could survive a mandatory mission were naturally not idiots. He was also very aware of the relationship between the 6 people, but he was weak and could only temporarily drift with the flow. However, compared to the reckless man and the scheming Sakura Miyamoto, he still believed that following the magnanimous and calm Ryozaki Shinji along the way would increase his chances of survival. This dwarf winter melon dares to betray me. Cut, I'll take care of you when I clean up these garbage. For Murakami Ichiro, who was on the run, Okada Shinichiro only looked down upon him, but he didn't trust his companion, Kojima Taro, who thought he was his companion. He ran up to Shinji Ryozaki and shook his head and tail like a dog. He couldn't bear it anymore. If it weren't for the enemy, he would immediately want to beat Kojima Taro into meat sauce to vent his hatred. One person earns 500 points, and we guarantee that you won't die. Shinji Ryozaki looked coldly at Kojima Taro, who came over to please him, and said, "It's useless to please him. If you want him to help, you only have substantial benefits." Upon hearing Shinji Ryozaki's words, Sato Nami was somewhat surprised, but she didn't say anything, which was considered a tacit agreement. 500 is not too good, okay, I'll give it. Taro Kojima wanted to negotiate, but as soon as he saw Abe's snake on Ryozaki's shoulder turn around and stare at him with cold snake eyes, a deadly feeling emerged from his heart, and a cold sweat broke out in an instant. Then he quickly nodded and agreed. "Very good, Nanami, Taro. I'll go over and interfere with them, and you'll take the opportunity to attack." Shinji Ryozaki nodded at Taro Kojima and immediately walked in front of the two, handing their backs to them, while Abe's snake turned his head and stared fixedly at the upcoming group of ultrasonic bats ahead. Sato Nana looked at Shinji Ryozaki in surprise, then suddenly a complex expression appeared in her eyes. In the end, she seemed to have made some decision and immediately gave orders to Miss Mizuki. "Miss Mizumi, use a mysterious shield to protect him," Sato Nanami said gently to Miss Mizumi beside her. Upon receiving the order, Miss Mizumi immediately used a mysterious shield to protect Shinji Ryozaki, with a white shield covering Shinji Ryozaki and Appa Snake. To make matters worse, "Come out, gas bomb, provoke them, Abe Snake, use a bluff." Ryozaki Shinji looked at the white shield on his body, hesitated for a moment, then released the gas bomb and said coldly to the arriving group of ultrasonic bats. More than 10 ultrasonic bats, who had already arrived as pioneers, were immediately excited when they saw 5 humans in front of them with fresh and vibrant blood. They wanted to use their signature trick. Ultrasonic waves, but were provoked by gas bombs and unable to do so. Coupled with the bravado of the Aber Snake, they began to become chaotic and then attacked each other. The other 4 people trembled when they saw Shinji Ryozaki simply and directly playing with more than 10 ultrasonic bats in applause. They immediately raised their estimate of Shinji Ryozaki's strength by a certain level. Saikiro Okada and Sakurako Miyamoto's faces were also ugly. However, as experienced members of the rocket team, they immediately made the best choice and commanded the elves to launch an attack on the more than 10 ultrasonic bats in front of them who were in chaos. Stinky mud, sludge waves. Quick fist Lang, quick frozen fist. Mao Chio, Nyenli. Miss Millip, blizzard. Sato Nanami and others issued orders to their own elves, instantly defeating all 10 or so vanguard ultrasonic bats. Next, Shinji Ryozaki repeated his old trick, controlling all the flying Boeing bats and big build bats, and then allowing the people behind to fully output. Soon, the ultrasonic bats chose to retreat due to the heavy casualties. After hearing the special sound wave of the big crossed bat, they all retreated. "Hey, you, transfer the money quickly." After seeing the bat swarm retreat, Shinji Ryozaki immediately looked at Taro Kojima, who had been paddling behind him with a murderous aura. This guy was working tirelessly throughout the entire battle. If it weren't for Sato Nami's infatuated blizzard always preventing the Boeing bat from breaking through the defense line at critical moments, this battle wouldn't have ended so easily. Perhaps he, who was at the forefront, would also be injured. Now, Sato Nanami's lost lip sister is panting heavily, and her remaining combat power is less than half. Yes, I'll turn around right away." Taro Kojima naturally saw that Shinji Ryozaki was dissatisfied, but he didn't dare to resist. Through the battle just now, he had already seen that the strongest person present was Shinji Ryozaki. The two little elves who could control more than 10 supersound bats were at least at the elite level. If he said no now, the purple snake on his body would surely bite him to death. "Humph, next time, I'll kill you," Shinji Ryozaki said coldly as he saw the points received through the Rocket Team's special Pokémon watch on his right hand. Kojima Taro quickly lowered his head and remained silent, with deep resentment in his eyes. 1,000 points were quite a lot, and before he could complete the task, someone had snatched away his hard-earned points. This made Kojima Taro hate Ryozaki Shinji very much in his heart. However, he dared not show it because the venomous snake on that damn guy still looked at him coldly. "Alright, everyone, let's hurry up and hit the road. The destination is right in front of us," Sakura Miyamoto said with a smile as soon as she saw that Shinji Ryozaki had finished his task. Unfortunately, no one was present to leave because one person was sitting on the ground leaning against the wall, taking a nap, and leisurely taking out exquisite feed for their own elves. That person was Shinji Ryozaki. "Little brother, what do you mean by this? Why don't you hurry up and get on the road?" Sakura Miyamoto said with a frozen smile when she saw Shinji Ryozaki's behavior. Ryozaki Shinji did not answer or look at her, and continued to focus on feeding his two little elves, while the remaining three followed suit when they saw her. "Actually, there's no need to be in such a hurry, Miss Miyamoto. Our little elf has just gone through a big war and is very tired. The most correct way is to make adjustments now," Kojima Taro said to Miyamoto Sakura with a smile. "You're right," Sakura Miyamoto said with a smile that narrowed her eyes. However, her smile was a bit unnatural. She turned her head slightly to look at Saikiro Okada, who was most at odds with Shinji Ryozaki, but found that he was also sitting on the ground, taking out the elf feed to feed Kajiro. She had been staring at Shinji Ryozaki with the corner of her eye, and her originally unbridled gaze had become increasingly wary. "Damn it, why is this kid so strong? There are 2 elite-level Pokémon, how could I offend such a terrifying guy?" Saikiro Okada is not an idiot. Although he joined the Rocket Team at the age of 18, he has already passed 2 mandatory missions. His initial Pokémon, Quick Fist, have also reached the level of an elite Pokémon, so he looks down on those young Rocket Team soldiers. He always thinks he is stronger than them, but now he wants to slap himself a few times hard. He shouldn't use his dog eyes to judge people low. He finally knows that judging strength by age is not right. Sakura Miyamoto saw that there was no one present willing to walk with her, so she had to stomp her feet hard in the end, then sit in place in frustration and take out the elf feed to feed the stinky mud. 5 people stayed in place for about 10 minutes in this eerie atmosphere, and then their calmness was shattered. A person covered in black mud ran towards them in a panic, shouting and shouting all the way. "Help me, there's a lot of stinky mud behind me." Murakami Ichiro, who had been going back and forth, ran up to Ryozaki Shinji and others. After saying these words, he fell to the ground unconscious. Then, a strong stench came from afar. "Unfinished to be continued. I have to take the exam for Subject 1 tomorrow, so I don't have time to write tomorrow's code. I rushed to work today and finished writing tomorrow's code." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Transfer of Rights. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Transfer of Rights. Clusters of purple sludge slowly moved towards this side from afar, covered in various types of household waste such as plastic cans, bags, moldy fruits, and decaying corpses. These hungry and unscrupulous slimes, for some reason, have a special fondness for Murakami Ichiro and are relentlessly chasing after him. Now they are greedily staring at Murakami Ichiro lying on the ground, as if they are looking at some tempting delicacy. Gas and Gas Snake. When Nagasaki Shinji and Abe Snake approached Murakami Ichiro, they were restless and restless. They greedily stared at Murakami Ichiro lying on the ground. If it weren't for Nagasaki Shinji's deep buildup of power, they would have rushed forward long ago. Is there any treasure on this guy that poison-type elves like? Shinji Ryozaki thought to himself after observing the strange smell of stinky mud and only 2 elves and Sakura Miyamoto's stinky mud. He read the introduction of stinky mud from the pickled version of the Pokémon Illustrated. These garbage-eating Pokémon generally do not attack humans and are very lazy. Unless they break into their territory, they will not attack food that does not match their taste. Even though Ichiro Murakami accidentally broke into the stinky mud territory and was attacked earlier, he should have already escaped from it by now. In theory, these lazy guys would give up chasing. In the end, Shinji Ryozaki came to the conclusion that Ichiro Murakami carried something very tempting for poisonous elves. There's something wrong with the black mud on his body, isn't it? Shinji Ryozaki shone a flashlight on Ichiro Murakami, his eyes shining brightly. He quickly stood up from the ground and rushed to Ichiro Murakami's side. He then took out a pair of rubber gloves from his space waste bag and put them on. He then used his hand to pull out Ichiro Murakami's black mud and split it in half, handing it to the gas bomb and Abe's snake mouth. The 2 little elves saw a look of great joy on their faces and immediately swallowed the sludge from Ryozaki's second hand. The gas bomb that swallowed the black sludge and the Abe snake immediately showed a faint purple light on their bodies, and then they became lively, as if all the fatigue from the previous battle had disappeared. It's indeed this kind of black sludge treasure, no wonder these stinky sludge are relentlessly chasing after. It's really an unexpected harvest. With it, the success rate of the death battle has increased by at least 20%, ha ha ha. Seeing the 2 little elf states return to their peak, Ryozaki Shinji's expressionless face showed a rare smile of satisfaction. As for Murakami Ichiro, who was lying on the ground and was about to be poisoned to death by the black sludge, he never took a look again. The stinky mud people who were about to approach were furious when they saw Shinji Ryozaki snatching what they wanted. They immediately launched an attack on Shinji Ryozaki and others, with more than 10 stinky mud attacking together. Countless black mud blocks were shooting towards them, which was the signature sign of stinky mud. The sludge bomb. Miss Mizumi used the most powerful blizzard to block their attack. Sato Nanami, standing next to Shinji Ryozaki, saw that he was in danger and immediately commanded Miss Mizumi to launch an attack. The roaring blizzard froze the flying sludge into ice lumps, and then collapsed weakly to the ground under the influence of the wind. However, the density of the sludge bombs was too high, and the blizzard was unable to defend against all the sludge bombs. Some sludge bombs broke through the range of the blizzard and flew towards Shinji Ryozaki. After seeing Shinji Ryozaki's behavior just now, others knew that he had obtained the treasure from Ichiro Murakami, and naturally felt very unbalanced in his heart. Especially Sakura Miyamoto, she actually discovered the black mud on Ichiro Murakami's body through the strange appearance of the stinky mud. Unfortunately, it was taken away by Shinji Ryozaki first. Therefore, when she saw Shinji Ryozaki being surrounded by the stinky mud, like Taro Kojima and Saikiro Okada, she chose to stand by and watch him coldly. Humph, a group of scumbags, Nanami, you tell Mizumi to step down, gas bullets, and Abe snakes, tear them apart for me. After seeing everyone's behavior, Ryozaki Shinji sneered a few times and then asked Sato Nanami to retreat behind him. Then, he cruelly looked at the stinky mud and gave orders to the already murderous gas bullets and Abe snakes beside him, hee, gas, hiss, snake. 2 little elves, who had greatly increased their strength due to obtaining black sludge, received orders and eagerly rushed towards the stinky mud group, starting a fierce killing spree. The gas bomb kept spitting out mutated sludge bombs from its mouth, directly shattering the stinky mud into pieces. Zzz, and the Abe snake spat out a large amount of dissolved liquid in its mouth, dissolving all the stinky mud. Quickly, more than 10 stinky mud were killed by the joint efforts of gas bombs and Appa snakes. They all turned into a puddle of thick water under the dissolution of Appa snakes, leaving a large pit in place corroded by the dissolution and exploded by the bomb. After finishing all of this, Gas Bullet and Abe Snake returned to Shinji Ryozaki's side, emitting a faint purple light. In no time, the two little elves, who had been tired from using a lot of moves, quickly regained their vitality. It's truly black sludge. With it, my two poisonous little elves can continue to fight as long as they don't get killed in seconds, and their combat power has at least doubled. Even if this mission fails, they have already earned a lot of money. Shinji Ryozaki looked at the big pit in front of him and then at the two little elves next to him who have regained their strength. He couldn't help but show a proud expression in his eyes, but soon calmed down because the danger was far from over. Compared to Shinji Ryozaki's overjoyed expression, Okada Saikiro and Miyamoto Sakura's side was shrouded in dark clouds. Seeing Shinji Ryozaki and his two little elves effortlessly eliminate more than 10 stinky mud, and it seemed that their strength had greatly increased due to the acquisition of the newly acquired treasure, they were in a heart-wrenching battle. With such strength, why is this guy just a soldier? Even a high-level elite is just like that, Sakura Miyamoto thought with a gloomy face. Although she was promoted to the elite by selling her body, and her strength is also at the bottom of the elite, she still has a vision. The person in front of her, Shinji Ryozaki, definitely has the strength of an intermediate or even high-level elite. She had already begun to regret offending Ryozaki Shinji at the beginning. She hated this man who was completely immune to beauty the most, and Ryozaki Shinji was the coldest man she had ever seen. Such a person would definitely have killed someone who had offended him. If it weren't for the importance of this mission and her own cards, she would have chosen to run away long ago. Okada Saikiro and Miyamoto Sakurako have similar ideas. If they admit their mistakes, they can quell Ryozaki Shinji's killing intent. He will kneel before this black-haired young man who looks at him coldly without hesitation. However, he knows that all of this is a luxury. If he cannot pay enough price, this decisive young man will not let him go, and he will definitely die. Kojima Taro's heart has turned blue with regret. He didn't choose to go to rescue just now and chose to stand idly by because of his obsession. Now, looking at the venomous snake that has been staring at him in front of him, he really wants to slap himself hard a few times. The opportunity to hug his thigh is gone, and it will never be. Let's go, everyone. It's time to get on the road. It's already unsafe here. Judging from the Boeing bat swarm and the stinky mud just now, it seems that someone is blocking us from carrying out the mission. If we don't start quickly, the mission may be preempted by others. You all have to listen to me for the next task, do you understand? Ignoring everyone's objections, Shinji Ryozaki said straightforwardly to them. Since his own strength has been exposed, this team should be led by him. If anyone dares to refuse, he will kill him now to eliminate future troubles. No problem, Brother Jean-Air, I'll listen to you. Kojima Taro was the first to stand up and support Ryozaki Shinji when he saw him speak. He looked at Ryozaki Shinji with a big smile on his face, as if he had as many dog legs as he looked. I also listen to you, Sato Nanami said as she stood next to Shinji Ryozaki. She is not a stranger to human relationships, and following the strong is an inevitable choice. Yes, if there's anything I need, please give me your orders. This is my apology, please accept it, my lord. Seeing Ryozaki Shinji look over coldly, Okada Saikiro immediately felt numb. Finally, he bowed respectfully to Ryozaki with a red face, and without saying a word, he gave 1,000 points from his own account to Ryozaki Shinji. Hahaha, great, you're very up to date, I really like you, and what about you, Miss Sakura Miyamoto? Faced with the transformation of Saikiro Okada, Shinji Ryozaki chuckled and coldly looked at Saikiro Okada. He pressed his head hard with his hand, then turned his head to look at Sakura Miyamoto's pale face. Well, the task was entrusted to me by the cadre, right? I understand now, and I have to ask Mr. Jenner. Sakura Miyamoto first wanted to use the cadre's name to threaten Mr. Longchi, but when she saw him and the three people around him coldly watching, she immediately changed her mind. The current situation is stronger than humans, and the dark world is inherently power-driven. Since you don't have the means to suppress the people below, handing over power and interests may allow you to live longer. Then I'll be more respectful than obedient. Miss Miyamoto, please lead the way ahead. Go over and protect her with the gas bomb. Empress Kojima Taro and Okada Saikairo, come to me with Nanami. After seeing Sakura Miyamoto soften, Ryozaki Shinji quickly gave the order. Hee, gas. Gas Dan chuckled and immediately flew behind Sakura Miyamoto, squinting his eyes at her with a cunning smile. Yes, sir. Taro Kojima and Saikairo Okada also took a step back and stood behind Shinji Ryozaki and Nanami Sato, watching the movement behind them with caution. Okay, really Second Lord. Feeling the malice of the gas bomb behind her, Sakura Miyamoto gritted her teeth and walked ahead with a grudge of foul mud. I can't wait, what kind of treasure is there ahead? Even black sludge can be used as bait casually, so the plan must be very big. However, I have already controlled this woman, so now I have the initiative in my hands. I'll see how you want to play, hee. Shinji Ryozaki sneered as he looked at Sakura Miyamoto, whose face turned pale. It is very reasonable for the strong to seek the interests of the weak, but there are always unexpected occurrences. Maybe the sheep are just pretending to be wolves. Unfinished to be continued, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. Protagonist and Elf Data. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Protagonist and Elf Data. The strength status of Shinji Ryozaki Trainer. Shinji Ryozaki Trainer Level. Level 31 Strength. Elite Skill. Beginner Fighting Art Treasure. Poisonous Pearl Pokémon 2 Elf. Gas Bullet, Mutation, Feature. Floating Attribute. Poison plus Trace Fire Series Elf Level. Level 35, 61% Evolution Completion, Strength. Intermediate Elite Carrying Item. Black Sludge, Defective Product, Mastering Skills. Sludge Bomb, Mutation, High. Speed Rotation, Provocation, Smoke, Toxic Mist, Sparks, Toxic Fire, Black Mist, Self-Explosion. Setting. Once a skill is mastered, it will not be forgotten. The power of the move can be enhanced through exercise, and there is no limit to the skill during battles. Elf. Arbor Snake Feature. Intimidation Attribute. Poison Elf Level. 30, 100% Evolution Completion, Stop Evolution 8 times Strength. Junior Elite Carrying Item. Black Sludge, Defective Product, Mastering Skills. Big Snake Glares, Dissolves, Bites, Binds, Venomous Tail, Inherited, Coiled, Highly Venomous Teeth, and Bravado. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Crisis Emergence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Crisis Emergence. The sound of tick, tick, tick kept ringing clearly in this dark and quiet sewer, and as Shinji Ryozaki and others approached the central area of the sewer, the surrounding environment also rapidly changed. The closer it is to the central area, the higher the humidity in the surrounding air, and the road surface begins to narrow. On the contrary, the black sewage river next to it begins to widen and its flow speed also begins to accelerate. In the end, the road surface has become quite difficult even for two people to walk side by side, and the sound of water coming from the nearby sewage river is clattering. Without any warning, with a bang, a venomous jellyfish emerged from the sewage river, and then his tentacles rolled up, catching one of the members of Ryozaki's group. Ah, help me, I don't want to die yet, Kojima Taro exclaimed in fear. Even though he grabbed the slippery ground with his hands and there were bloodstains on the ground, several blue tentacles wrapped around his waist still quickly dragged him into the pitch-black and foul-smelling sewage river. After struggling on the surface of the water, he sank forever into the bottom of the river without a sound. Damn it, gas bombs, sludge bombs, Nanami, Okada Saikairo, make your little elves freeze on the water. After seeing Taro Kojima suddenly being taken away by a venomous jellyfish lurking in the nearby sewage river, Shinji Ryozaki's face turned very ugly. As the road narrows and the river widens, some water system elves that can live in sewage begin to appear and attack them. Along the way, they have encountered several venomous stinging jellyfish lurking in the sewage river for food, but they have all been violently repelled by them. But the stinging jellyfish in front of him was different from the previous ones that suddenly launched an attack from the water. He actually knew how to place his tentacles on the road to set traps, and even with a keen eye, he captured the weakest one, Taro Kojima. When they reacted, Taro Kojima could no longer be saved. Bang bang bang, several sludge bombs exploded in the water, causing large splashes of water. The venomous jellyfish, which was originally intended to launch an attack, was blown up for a distance by the bombs, with several tentacles broken and some falling to the ground, constantly shaking. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Sato Nami and Okada Saikairo quickly gave orders to their two little elves. Miss Millip, the freezing light. Quick Fist Lang, use the frozen fist on the water surface. Mi Lip Sister and Kwai Kwan Lang executed the command, and the Quick Freeze Light and Quick Freeze Fist were immediately used, freezing the sewage and face in an instant. Although the poison sting jellyfish was not completely frozen, most of its lower body tentacles were frozen, unable to break free for a while. However, the two red crystals on his head began to shine, wanting to use ultrasound waves to interfere with Ryozaki Shinji's person. I still want to fight back, think it's beautiful, gas bullet, provocation, Abe snake, give him some color to see, use the dissolution liquid. The red light wave made Ryozaki Shinji feel dizzy, but he bit his tongue hard to wake himself up and immediately let gas bullet and Abe snake attack. Gas and gas, snake snake, the black light on the gas bullet's body flashed, and the ultrasound of the venomous jellyfish was immediately interrupted, while the aber snake's mouth quickly bulged, and then a large mouthful of dissolved liquid was spit out from his mouth, accurately hitting the head of the venomous jellyfish. The corrosive solution quickly melts a part of the head of the venomous jellyfish. After absorbing the poisonous energy of the highly poisonous pearl, the solution of the aber snake is more corrosive than before, even the venomous jellyfish, who are also poisonous elves, cannot withstand it. Poison sting, the head was severely injured, and the poison sting jellyfish immediately trembled and howled, but due to its frozen lower body, it was unable to escape. Quick Fist Lang, Thunder Light Palm. Okada Saikairo likes to do things like painfully hitting water dogs. When he saw the poison sting jellyfish being severely injured by Ryozaki Shinji, he immediately asked Quick Fist Lang to come out and repair the knife. Mao Chio, who had originally lost his owner and became emotionally depressed, angrily used his moves. Although Kojima Taro usually didn't treat him well, their relationship over the years still made Mao Chio recognize him. Now that Kojima Taro has been killed by a venomous jellyfish, he is very self-blaming and angry. Thunder Light Palm and Nyenli hit the stinger jellyfish, which had an outstanding effect. The stinger jellyfish eventually collapsed weakly. Just as Okada Chinichiro and Mao Chio wanted to kill the stinger jellyfish, a rocket team specially made black and white elf ball hit the stinger jellyfish. With a dong sound, the Pokemon ball subdued the poisonous stinger jellyfish, and then the gas bullet bit the Pokemon ball and flew to Shinji Ryozaki's side. "Thank you, gas bullet," Shinji Ryozaki said gently as he took the Pokemon ball handed over by gas bullet and touched his uneven head. Gas bullet immediately transformed into a dog leg, happily flying around Ryozaki Shinji. Mao Chio, angry as he saw his enemy being subdued by Shinji Ryozaki, ran up to Shinji Ryozaki and shouted. "Humph, a garbage that even the owner can't protect dares to come and question me. I can do whatever I want, go away." Faced with Mao Chio's angry shout, Shinji Ryozaki showed disdain in his eyes and said coldly. The ape snake wrapped around him immediately had cold eyes, greedily staring at Mao Chio. Mao Chio seemed to have gone all out. Mao Chio shouted when he heard Shinji Ryozaki's words, his eyes shining with a blue light, and a powerful wave of his psychic power appeared from him. Unfortunately, he had not yet released his psychic power. A sudden freezing light froze him into a lump of ice, and then a specially designed elf ball from the rockets subdued him. "Humph, mind your own business," Ryozaki Shinji said coldly as he looked at the iceberg beauty who had walked up to him and picked up the Pokemon ball. Abe Snake also looked at her with displeasure, but without Ryozaki Shinji's command, he dared not act recklessly against the woman who was specially taken care of by his master. "I'm really sorry, Master Junior," Sato Nanami said respectfully with her head lowered. She didn't dare to look into Ryozaki Junior's eyes. Along the way, if Ryozaki Junior hadn't saved her at a critical moment, she would have died long ago as a rocket soldier who didn't even reach the elite level. This was all due to her success in standing in the team from the beginning. Now offending Shinji Ryozaki in order to save Mao Chio is equivalent to cancelling out everything that happened before. From the beginning to the various behaviors exhibited by this man so far, it can be seen that he is a ruthless and very principled person who does not allow others to make arbitrary claims or violate his orders. You can seek more blessings for yourself, and stand behind Kazuichiro. Shinji Ryozaki gave her an indifferent look before stepping over her and walking forward. Yes, Sato Nanami continued to bow her head respectfully, and as soon as Shinji Ryozaki stepped over her, she immediately retreated to the back of the team. "Come out, poison sting jellyfish, eat it, and then hurry to work." Shinji Ryozaki put the half-dead poison sting jellyfish into the unfrozen sewage river, and then let the Abe Snake spit out the black sludge. As soon as the black sludge appeared, the venomous jellyfish, who had been lying in the water pretending to be dead, immediately regained its energy. Two blue tentacles quickly extended from the water to remove the black sludge on the ground, and then directly loaded it into its own body. A faint purple light continuously emanated from the body of the venomous jellyfish. In no time, the part of his head that had been corroded by the solution began to slowly repair again, and the broken tentacles also began to grow. "Woman, tell me where exactly is the central area? It's been over an hour since we've been walking, why haven't we arrived yet?" After seeing the poison sting jellyfish start using black mud to repair its body, Shinji Ryozaki turned his head and said to Sakura Miyamoto, who was still being guarded by gas bombs ahead. "Since being controlled by him, this woman has been silent and not fighting, always leading the way forward, like a puppet. Now that Taro Kojima has died and the atmosphere around him is getting worse, it immediately makes him doubt that this path is really right." Sakura Miyamoto turned her head and looked at Shinji Ryozaki with a wooden expression, nodding without saying anything. "I really thought I wouldn't dare to touch you, Gaston. Let her suffer a bit." Seeing Sakura Miyamoto still not speak, Shinji Ryozaki's eyes lit up with a cold light and he immediately let Gaston launch an attack on her. The gas bomb was already impatient. Upon hearing the order from Shinji Ryozaki, it immediately hit Sakura Miyamoto with a collision, but surprisingly, the gas bomb directly shattered Sakura Miyamoto. Immediately after, Sakurako Miyamoto began to soften her whole body and eventually turned into a mischievous creature with a cunning gaze. The stinky mud around him immediately rolled up the creature and jumped into the turbulent sewage river nearby, disappearing. Ah! A scream came from behind, and Ryozaki Shinji didn't care to order the poison sting jellyfish to catch the stinky mud. He quickly turned around to take a look. Okada Saikairo's heart was pierced by a painless punch, while Sato Nami and the two little elves beside them fell to the ground unconscious. A familiar smell came, and upon hearing it, Longchi suddenly felt a dizzy sensation in his head. He was about to take a step, but his body was weak and he knelt on the ground, unable to move. The Appa snake on his body had already fallen one step ahead of him. When did this hypnotic gas appear? Shinji Ryozaki struggled to lift his head, and a person wearing a ninja suit appeared in his eyes. He looked at him with a playful expression on his face, and then the scene in his eyes began to blur. Unfinished to be continued, end of this chapter. Chapter 10. Escape from Death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Escape from Death. After being hit by my specially designed hypnosis gas for so long, you can still maintain consciousness. It's amazing, but unfortunately, you're going to die in my Aju's hands today. Remember, you died under my Aju's knife, this is your supreme honor. The young ninja named Aju smiled proudly, his eyes flashing with a cold light, and his right hand immediately pulled out the sharp samurai sword on his back. With lightning speed, he aimed a knife at the head of Shinji Ryozaki and struck it straight. In the blink of an eye, Abe's snake, who was originally lying next to Ryozaki Shinji, suddenly opened its cold snake pupils and shot a foul-smelling solution at Aju like a sharp arrow. As long as he dared to continue to use his knife to split Ryozaki Shinji's head, he would also be melted into pus by Abe's snake's dissolution. Aju is truly a disciple of the training master Musashi Miyamoto at the Asahi City Road Museum. At critical moments, he was able to timely retract his sword, change direction, and strike the solution with one strike, splitting it in half. Although he successfully resolved the crisis, some of the splashed solution still splashed onto him. A wisp of white smoke appeared from him, and in just a few seconds, the solution left his ninja suit riddled with wounds and melted some of his flesh. He himself immediately threw away the samurai sword, which had already been corroded by the solution. Then, enduring the piercing pain, he quickly distanced himself from the Abe snake. When Aju left the attack range of Abe's snake, Gas Bullet and Abe's snake were already guarding in front of Ryozaki Shinji, staring at Aju with fierce eyes. Amazing, almost dead, but you still have to die. Stinky mud, big-mouthed bat, what are you waiting for? Kill them for me. The power of the dissolution has not completely dissipated, and the excruciating pain of flesh and blood is constantly eroding Aju's nerves. Aju grinned in pain, with an ugly expression on his face. As a ninja, he was actually deceived by a little elf, which is simply shameful. He immediately launched an attack command with a stern expression towards his two hidden little elves. With a loud bang, water splashed everywhere, and a foul-smelling mud hidden at the bottom of the sewage river quickly landed. The place where he appeared was right behind Shinji Ryozaki, with a decaying mouth and countless sludge bombs shooting smoothly at Shinji Ryozaki. At the same time, the sludge in his hand was scrutinized, and he grabbed Shinji Ryozaki. Big-mouthed bat, the dark ceiling opened a pair of crimson eyes, and then countless sharp air blades shot down from Ryozaki Shinji's head. Damn it, retreat first, gas bomb, smoke screen. The power of the hypnotic gas was almost eroding his consciousness. Ryozaki Shinji's eyes flashed fiercely, and he used his tenacious will to control his right hand and fiercely inserted it into his left thigh. The intense pain immediately brought Ryozaki Shinji temporary clarity. He quickly rolled towards the open space on the side, avoiding the attacks of the stinky mud and the big-mouthed bat, and then ordered the gas bomb to use the smoke screen. Hiss, hiss, a large amount of black smoke was released from the gas bomb, and the black smoke instantly covered everything around it. If you want to run, don't think about it. The big-mouthed bat blew smoke away, smelled mud, and used mud waves to attack in range. Aju saw that Ryozaki Shinji was evading the attack by self-harm, and immediately felt uncomfortable. Before he could throw out Ku Wu, who was holding onto his hand, he lost his sight due to the smoke screen of the gas bomb. Although Ku Wu finally threw it accurately towards Ryozaki Shinji's previous position, he knew through the sound of landing that Ryozaki Shinji was no longer in place. He immediately let the big-mouthed bat and stinky mud drag Ryozaki Shinji. The wings of the big-mouthed bat flapped vigorously, and in an instant, the strong wind blew away the thick black mist, revealing Shinji Ryozaki who had already run a distance. However, the foul-smelling mud responsible for dragging Shinji Ryozaki was now entangled by a large number of tentacles of the venomous jellyfish, making it impossible to prevent him from escaping. No, Ape Snake, I'll leave it to you next. The hypnotic gas was already fully effective, and even the pain was of no use. In the end, Shinji Ryozaki only had time to retrieve the gas bomb from the Pokémon ball, and he lost consciousness and fell into the sewage river. Abe Snake saw a struggling expression in his eyes, but in the end, he chose to enter the sewage river and quickly wrapped his body around Ryozaki Shinji, leading him to surface and moving along the turbulent sewage river, quickly escaping Aju's pursuit. After seeing that Shinji Ryozaki was safe, the poisonous stinger jellyfish immediately released its grip on the foul-smelling mud and dived into the water, chasing after Shinji Ryozaki. Bang! Aju punched the hard wall next to him, his face gloomy like water. Despite the bloody and dripping flesh on his fist, his sharp eyes stared fixedly at the direction where Ryozaki Shinji was fleeing. The prey, which was supposed to be secure, actually ran away under his nose. This is the first time he has been overturned in a situation where he has almost won steadily, and it is also the worst loss he has ever suffered since starting his career, which makes it difficult for the proud and arrogant him to accept. Okay, you've won this time, but since you're here, you must have come for that kind of thing. We'll definitely meet again, Shinji Ryozaki. We'll have more fun then. After taking a deep breath, Aju finally calmed down her anger. As a ninja, one must always remain calm. Just now, she lost her composure due to anger, revealing her flaws. After thinking through everything that had just happened, Aju once again showed the indifferent and lifeless gaze that a ninja should have, muttering to Shinji Ryozaki in the direction of leaving. Stinky mud, take them all. Aju turned around and looked at Sato Nami, who was lying unconscious on the ground. With a glance at the little elf beside her, she ordered Stinky Mud to roll them up and disappear with him into the darkness. On the other hand, just as Shinji Ryozaki was escaping from Aju's pursuit of life and death, Sakura Miyamoto had already arrived at the center of the sewer under the guidance of Stinky Mud. At the same time, there stood a man in front of her wearing the elite uniform of the rocket team. The man was very tall and thin, like a bamboo pole, but a bloodthirsty beast-like aura was released from his thin and weak body, with a strong smell of blood, to the extent that Sakura Miyamoto dared not approach him too closely. You did a great job this time, finally getting rid of Aju's interference and successfully coming here again. There has been a lot of change here, it's really nice. It's been 3 years since we last came here, right? The tall and thin man looked down at the purple swamp below and said, with a bloodthirsty gaze in his eyes. This is the lowest point of the sewer system, where all sewage is discharged and then discharged into the sea through a channel connecting the swamp underground. However, due to the accumulation of a large amount of household waste here that cannot be cleared, this untreated central area eventually becomes a huge garbage dump. This place has attracted a large amount of stinky mud, gradually turning into a paradise for stinky mud. Garbage is consumed and digested by them, and toxic substances that cannot be dissolved or sunk underwater are discharged. These substances accumulate over the years and eventually turn the central area into a highly toxic swamp. Yes, back then we accidentally discovered this place to avoid the pursuit of the Alliance, but in the end, only you, me, and Thomas managed to leave alive. Unfortunately, Thomas had a big mouth and leaked information about the treasure, which was eventually killed by someone. It's a pity that we had this troublesome guy, Aju. But thanks to the help of cannon fodder, we were able to easily avoid Aju's obstruction and successfully come here. Now is the right time. After waiting for 3 years, it is finally maturing. As long as we obtain this treasure in front of us, our strength will definitely increase in the future, and becoming a cadre is just around the corner. Sakura Miyamoto excitedly said, looking down at the purple swamp below with a deep greed in her eyes. At this time, a large group of wild poisonous little elves were gathering in the purple swamp, and the 2 major groups of sewage, led by Stinky Mud and Forked Bats, occupied 2/3 of the area of the purple swamp. The remaining area is occupied by a group of various poisonous elves led by an Appa monster and a Gung ghost. The 4 leader-level elves are vigilantly watching each other, but most of their attention is focused on the central area of the swamp. In the center of the purple swamp grows a strange tree that is completely pitch black. It is rooted in thick toxic substances below, and its black roots cover the entire purple swamp. The black leaves on the big tree have almost fallen off, and now 2 purple fruits emitting purple light are hanging on the bare branches at the top of the tree. A fragrant aroma spreads from the purple fruits, and the 4 leaders smell the increasingly fragrant fruit fragrance, greedily staring at the purple fruits. As the fruits gradually ripen, the atmosphere on the purple swamp also becomes more solemn. In the end, the purple fruit ripened and a battle was imminent. Unfinished to be continued, end of this chapter.